Good afternoon and Happy New Year to you, 2012. Can you believe we're in the fourth day of the new year? Let me introduce myself. My name is Pam Malone, and I am the PR and Communications Director for the Education Achievement Authority of Michigan, and it truly is my pleasure to welcome you and to thank the Grand Rapids Public Schools community for welcoming us into your home, into your community. At this time, I'd like to recognize members of our staff who are here very briefly so that you will know who we are and you will get to know us as we go through this afternoon, as we progress through the afternoon, I should say. In the rear of the room is our Chief of Staff, Tyrone Winfrey. Would you please just hold up your hand, Tyrone, so people will know who you are? Our Associate Chancellor is Deputy, or rather, Dr. H. Meandre Prince. Dr. Prince, could you please just let everyone know who you are in the room? Our Chief Officer for Innovation and Accountability is Dr. Mary Esselman, who will facilitate today's session. And we have our administrative support here with us as well. We have Elizabeth Ruiz, who has checked you in as you came in this afternoon. And we have Reese Robinson, who is Administrative Assistant to the Chancellor. And we also have Daryl Hasty, who is with us this afternoon. The key person that is here this afternoon who will bring greetings to you is Chancellor John William Covington, who was appointed in August of 2011 as the first Chancellor for the Education Achievement Authority of Michigan. Dr. Covington is known, has developed a reputation for urban school reform and brings a number of innovative ideas with him this afternoon to share with you as we move forward. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. John William Covington to you, Chancellor of the Education Achievement Authority of Michigan. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Pam. I appreciate it. And good afternoon to all of you. And I'd like to say first and foremost how much I appreciate you taking time out of what I'm sure are busy schedules to be with us as we move through the process of having a conversation about the work to take place within the Education Achievement Authority over the next couple of months and hopefully in the years ahead. Before getting started with comments that I'd like to make, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least recognize newly appointed Superintendent, Ms. Neal. Ms. Neal. And also a very special thank you to the principal of the high school here, Principal Jennings, for playing host. I'd like to also recognize the mayor of our city, Mayor George, and Susan Hartwell, his wife, is here. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. A member of the Grand Rapids City School Board, Mrs. Slade. Mrs. Slade, where are you? All right, thank you so much for being here as well. And I'd also like to recognize a member of our governing board, Mr. Mark Murray, who is also here. Mark? All right, now, thanks to all of you for coming. I appreciate it. I'd like to just, for a second or two or a few minutes before introducing to you Mary Esselman, who is going to facilitate our work and our time together this afternoon, to share with you a little bit about the Education Achievement Authority. I am sure that you have heard from Lansing, either via television, radio, newspaper, what the EAS is. And I just want to bring some clarity to the conversation if I can. Prior to, I think, my being sought out to make application for the Chancellor's position, shortly after the governor took office, he recognized that prior to him being elected, that there was a piece of legislation that had been passed that gives the state the authority to do some intervention into local schools, particularly if those schools found themselves on what we call the persistently lowest performing list across the state. And then to move forward as a result of that authority to put avenues or structures in place to basically turn these schools around. And as a result of that, he then added to his education platform a primary goal of improving the persistently lowest performing schools across the state of Michigan. On this list, there are approximately 98 schools, 34 of which are located in the city of Detroit. The remaining schools are located, or the majority of the remaining schools are located kind of in the southeastern corridor of the state. Many citizens, as I have gone across the state to talk with various stakeholders about our work in EAS, somewhat believes that this is nothing more than a clandestine backdoor attempt on the part of state government just to take over schools and to remove, at best, local control. That's one thing. The other thing that I've noticed as I've traveled across the state is, and I've only been in Michigan now for about 3 or 4 months, but I'm a quick study. It didn't take me very long to recognize that we're kind of two different places. And what I mean by that is there is Detroit, and then there is the rest of the state. And Detroiters do not take kindly to outsiders coming in, getting into the midst of their business. And then outstate Michiganders somewhat have a feeling that if it has anything to do with Detroit, then we don't want any part of it. And then the other thing that I've noticed is that there's primarily one occasion where Michiganders will really come together, and even then there's a great divide, and that's the Michigan State University of Michigan game. So that's kind of where we are. So let me talk to you about the work of EAA. And although 36 of these schools are located in Detroit, and we have 100 that are persistently low performing in the state, and they have been for years and years and years without much being done to help these schools overcome the deficiencies that they have so that young people would acquire the skills, the competence, and the knowledge set that I think that they need, and I think we would all agree what they need to become what I would call fierce competitors on the economic world stage. But even at that, the issue or the issues facing the 96, 97, 98 schools, regardless of their location, whether they're in Detroit or whether they're located in Grand Rapids. I just kind of like for you to understand this afternoon that those issues aren't related to Detroit or Grand Rapids alone, nor can these problems being faced by these schools be relegated to the state of Michigan. Public education is a national problem, and it has been since President Reagan directed the study Nation at Risk during the beginning days of his tenure as President of the United States. And then we have gone from the Nation at Risk to today, 2012, being a nation really in crisis when it comes to public education. And when you look at, and we provided you with a number of data cards throughout the room, when you look at these cards, you see that not only in Michigan, but across the country, our students are consistently failing to compete with their international counterparts, particularly in the areas of math and science. And if we don't do something to turn the bow of this ship and to turn it very, very quickly, I think that we're going to find ourselves in a lot of trouble. And regardless of which side of the aisle you find yourself, and regardless of your political persuasion, none of that seems to matter. regardless and we are a country now of in excess of far over 200 years old. And when we look at how we all got here, and regardless of whether your ancestors crossed the Bering Strait to get here, whether they came north of the border, whether they came on slave ship, whether your ancestors listened to the beck and call of the Statue of Liberty, who says, "Send me, you're tired and you're bewildered, yearning to be," regardless of any of that, regardless of which ship on which your ancestors arrived, I think as a country, as a state, as a community, we need to understand, regardless of that ship, we're all in the same boat now. And if we don't do something drastically to change how we deliver educational programs and services to the youngsters in our schools, our country's seen a bad day. And that's just the fact of the matter. Now, I often share, to make my point as to why we need to change, I share the story, and looking around the room, I think the majority of everybody here remember Wally and Beaver Cleaver. All right, good. If we were somehow able to resurrect Wally and Beaver and their friend Eddie Haskell living across the street, to walk the corridors of our schools, the only thing that Wally, Beaver, and Eddie is going to find somewhat odd is the ethnicity of the children in the building. As soon as Wally, Beaver, and Eddie go into their respective classrooms and sit down, because we have failed to change the structure of how we deliver educational programs and services, Wally, Beaver, and Eddie are going to feel right at home. And they're going to feel a lot more at home than the children that we teach today. And now that is not to throw teachers under the bus because they're doing the best jobs that they can do. That is not to throw the boards of education or local government under the bus. I think we're all trying, but I think where our failure as a country and where as a state is that we fail to recognize that when we come up with these new initiatives, we dump it in the same structure that we should have abandoned years ago. The structure by which we deliver these services were built for farmers, an industrial age that we should have long since abandoned. These young people exit their mother's wombs with a laptop in one hand and a cell phone in the other, and we still say to them, "You got to start the school after Labor Day. We got to give you 3 days to 5 days for Thanksgiving. We got to give you 2 weeks for Christmas. We got to usher you out of the door by the end of May, the 1st of June. You can't start the school between, after 8 o'clock. And we got to push you out of the door at the sound of a bell ringing at 3. And not only that, when you start, regardless of your ability, you got to start pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and you got to do it in 9 months. One size fits all. Well, what if a group of children demonstrate, if they're in the 3rd grade, what if they demonstrate that they can master whatever it is that they need to master in 6 months? Why do we say that you have to sit here 3 more months? Why don't we allow those kids to move forward? And so the fact of the matter is, if we continue to force the kind of transformation that we're trying to bring about into the current structure that we should have should have abandoned a long time ago, it's just not going to work. It's not. And so we have asked you here today, when I took the job as the chancellor, it would have been easy for me to come in and put pen to paper and to develop a system, give it to the governor, and let's go on about our business. That is not the way, and that's not the way that we do things in terms of being successful. I've had a very successful tenure as superintendent in Alabama, in Colorado, and in Kansas City, although that's somewhat questionable. But at any rate, the way to make sure that we have the best plan developed, that we can all buy into and support, is to bring stakeholders together and hear their opinions and their voice, and not just bring them together for the purpose of having crossed the T's and dotted the I's to say that, well, I did it, but to make sure that the input that you're getting from the stakeholders from across the state and in the various communities where we're going is reflected in the final report that we send to the governor, which is why we have asked you to come, and is our purpose for going from community to community all over this state. That's important. We're going to have to do this together. And so the EAA is not necessarily about taking over persistently lowest performing schools. This is an opportunity for the state of Michigan to do something that no other state in the union has done to date. No other state has done to date, and that is to truly transform its schools, moving it from this monolithic, pre-industrial, agrarian kind of system that we all know we should have long since abandoned. And for once and for all, get it right. And folks, this may very well be our last opportunity to do it. And so I thank you for your time. I thank you for your presence. I thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest. And not that you're going to agree, because I know that we're all not, and that's fine. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Chief Officer for Innovation, Assessment, and Accountability for the Educational Achievement Authority, who are going to walk you through activities designed to garner your opinions and the input as we move forward in a design plan for the Educational Achievement Authority. Thank you so very much. Mary?
Good afternoon. It is so great to see a packed house today. We had kind of an ulterior motive in serving lunch, because we're not going to just sit and listen today. We're actually going to ask you to roll up your sleeves and work for the next 2.5 hours. So what I'm going to do is kind of facilitate the process. We're going to try to cover 3 key activities. One of the things we want to start with is looking at a belief system. Because we're statewide as opposed to just focusing on a single area, we want to make sure that we're capturing a belief system for the entire state of Michigan. This is actually the 10th session that we've held, the 10th strategic conversation. We had 3 in Detroit, and the remainder have been throughout the state. And I'll have to say it's been a really interesting process, because there hasn't been a session that we've had where we haven't had something articulated in a slightly different way, a slightly new insight. So I know a lot of you have been through strategic planning processes before, and I'm going to ask you today to just start anew with the new year and really give it your all as we move forward. Then the second activity that we're going to do is going to really focus on, if we're truly going to reinvent schools, then what we're talking about is something other, not something better. We're not trying to fix what's there. We're trying to look at what are really the needs that students have for 21st century schools, and we're going to ask you to weigh in on some design elements for those that you find to be most important. And then we're going to wrap up the day by taking a stab at creating a mission statement for the authority. So that's kind of how we're going to structure our afternoon. As we finish that last activity, I'm going to ask Dr. Covington to come back up, and that'll provide you with an opportunity to ask some questions, create some clarification if you need that. So we'll make sure that we leave some time at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. And also we'll talk a little bit about how you can stay connected to the process. Because you have such a diverse group here today, representing not only educators, but city officials and members of the community, it'll be important for you to stay connected so you can see, what were some of the feedback that you gave us, how does that translate into the plan, and how does that fit in with what we've heard from other communities. So, couple ground rules. I'm going to ask you to take off your hats today. So you are not here as an educator, you are not here as a parent, you are not here as a community official. Rather, you're here to look at what's best for Michigan's children. So I'm going to ask you to speak in terms of that as opposed to what you do for your profession. Be open-minded. I think it's really important. I know, as I mentioned earlier, that some of you have done some of these activities, but let's use it as a fresh start. Turn off those cell phones and pagers, and then we're going to try to keep it fairly simple and straightforward. We'll give you an opportunity to debrief. We're not going to be looking for any dissertations or theses today. We're just going to try to look for some simple truths. So, talking about belief systems. It's always interesting when you look at beliefs, and today we're not going to look at beliefs just as they relate to education. I want you to look at core beliefs. What are those belief systems that you have that have created the person that you've become today? Those beliefs that encourage you to make the choices that you make. And when you think about beliefs, I've given you a couple little indicators up here. They tend to be fairly personal. They're not something you typically can prove, but they do tend to be universal. So as we start out our day today, I'm going to ask you to grab your toolboxes that are in the beginning on each of your tables. We're going to be working with that a bit today. In that, you should have pens, post-it notes, everything you need that we're going to need throughout the day. I'm going to ask each of you to write down 5 core beliefs. All right? 5 personal core beliefs that you hold. Now, the one thing I want you to do is avoid writing them about education. Okay? So even though we're here about the Education Achievement Authority, I know the temptation is going to be there, but I want you to focus on just core beliefs. And I've actually given you a couple up here, all right? I believe everyone counts. I believe I am my brother's keeper. I believe everyone should be treated with respect. All right, so that gives you a sense of general beliefs. Now, as you jot them down, I want you to take 5 separate post-it notes, okay? Don't try to cram them all on one. Put 5 separate post-it notes because we're going to actually work with these in a few minutes. And then I'm going to ask you also to start each of those statements with the words, I believe. So, Pam, yes? Oh, okay, great. Great. So we do have extra Post-its or anything that you're going to need throughout the day. So I'm going to actually give you about 5 minutes for that, okay? So go ahead. I want 5 belief statements. Again, they're general beliefs, starting with the words, I believe, okay? So we need 5 of those on 5 separate Post-its. So we're going to do a little mix-up at this point. And it's kind of a great opportunity, though, because if you decided lunch did look good, or you want that little cookie, now's the perfect time to grab it, or to just clear your plates. But we actually color-coded you today, and there's no cheating from this point on. All right? You have an agenda that is a certain color. So we're going to ask you to get out of your comfort zone and go to work with a group that you're not quite as familiar with. Because you notice when you came in, I could hear all the chatter because everybody knows each other at your table. So we're going to try to increase our work output today by changing our seats. So I'm going to call out where the tables are going to be, and I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to only give you about 3 minutes, so you're going to have to move. All right? We're going to start in the back with blue. The 2 tables right there are going to be blue. Meandre, can you hold up blue there? All right, my next 2 tables in the back, we'll go ahead and do green. All right, so we got 2 blue and 2 green. Up here are 2 yellow teams that are going to be in these 2 tables, orangey pink here. And the lucky tables here, and I have to see all of you guys move too because I know what people do. These are the rainbow tables. So if there are more than 8 people at your table, you have to go to a rainbow table, okay? But you guys can't stay there going up. There probably won't be a seat at my color. All right, so up and moving, 3 minutes, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do with those beliefs. Let's go. No cheating, no trading. Now, we've got a couple of tasks to get organized. The first thing you're going to do when we finish is I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves, but in the spirit of taking our hats off today, we're not going to talk about our jobs and our families. Instead, you're going to introduce yourself and you're going to share an elementary school memory or a favorite teacher, okay? So when you introduce those 2 things, name and an elementary school memory or a favorite teacher. All right, when you're finished with that, then we've got a couple of jobs for the table, all right? We're going to need a timekeeper. You're going to need a recorder who's going to be writing out some of your work today. And then you're going to need a reporter, which is the person that's going to be very timely and come up to share. Because as you can see, we've got 10 groups today, so we are going to have to be a little bit efficient. When Dr. Covington introduced me, he said I was innovation and accountability. So I get to help you be really creative today, but then I get to draw you back and kind of have you follow the rules a little bit, okay? So timekeepers, I really need you to watch that time, so when it's time to report out, you've got your reporter up front. So remember, 3 jobs. So introductions, 3 jobs, and here's what you're going to do with those beliefs. Everybody's got 5 beliefs. What we're going to ask you to do as a table is come up with 6. All right, now here's the catch. They have to be universal. So everybody at the table has to agree on the belief for it to be counted. Now we're going to ask you to post it. Now we'll give you a couple of tools to help you with. We're going to kind of repurpose our gallery walk and flip those boards over. So if you want to start putting up and organizing by theme, you can use the backs of the boards. We'll put some paper up. But the end result in 15 minutes is you're going to come back to us with 6 core beliefs that represent your team. All right, so at that 15-minute marker, we're going to ask your reporter to be up front where we'll have 10 easels, and they're going to share back top 2. Okay? So introductions, jobs, and 6 core beliefs for the table. And make sure when you write those beliefs, you're writing them as we believe. And are these educational beliefs? No. Good. General beliefs. All right, we'll see you in 15 minutes. Timekeepers, let's set our watches. That means we're going to reconvene at 2 o'clock. All right, see you then.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't want to take credit for this alone, so the team, please raise your hands. This was our team, and our top 2 were, I believe that our community is willing to collaborate on behalf of all children, and number 2, I believe that every person has the ability to learn, grow, and excel.
We're the yellow group at this table here. We believe having a positive attitude and attempting to do your best will influence a positive outcome in any situation. And we also believe that all children have great unlimited potential.
I'm the yellow group right here, and I have, we believe humans have potential, and we believe humans deserve respect.
We didn't narrow it down to 2, so I'll just pick 2 that maybe are a little bit different. We believe in the hierarchy of needs and with food and shelter, and we believe that every child and person has innovation and creativity.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to run this to the back.
Okay, we're the green group right here, and we believe we are responsible for and to each other, and we believe that all humans should be valued equally.
We're the green group right here, aka the mayor's group. And he delegated. We believe with hard work you can achieve your goals. We also believe in equity and equality, as well as access and opportunity in parentheses, but it's not up.
Hello, everyone. We're the blue team, Go Blue. I know you guys watched the game last night. And we believe everyone should be treated with dignity and respect, and we also believe in personal responsibility.
We are the second blue table, and we believe in equal opportunities for all, and that everyone has the potential to be a role model or leader.
We're the orange group, and we believe that change is inevitable, and we also believe that trust is the foundation for all relationships.
Great, thank you. All right, as we move into the next phase where we start to really talk about what are the possibilities and what do 21st century schools look like, I want you to be thinking about those core beliefs and be thinking about whether or not the schools and the opportunities that we're providing are really meeting those core beliefs. Before we actually spend much time, though, I want to kind of get a little bit of a baseline read. So I want to kind of see, where is your thinking when you think about reinvention and you think about kind of other, not better. So what I'm going to ask each of you to do, and this is kind of a fun little activity, but what I'm going to ask you to do is individually and then as a group, I want you to think about what animal or place for you comes to mind when you think about 21st century schools. So I'm going to ask you to jot it down on a Post-it, and this one's kind of fun, so I am going to ask you to reveal these rather than just have them out in the open like we did with beliefs. So when your team finishes, I'm going to ask you to post it backwards so you can reveal it when we kind of go around to show. But first of all, individually, I want you to think of that animal or place. Now, this is a group of over 60 people, so I'm expecting some pretty good thinking. All right, so really stretch yourselves on this. And I want you to not only focus on the animal or the place, but I want you to think about what are the attributes of that animal or that place that makes it for you representative of what 21st schools should be. Okay? So we're going to take about 10 minutes. All right? Should be. All right? Because I would gauge that most of ours aren't quite there yet. Okay? So you're going to do it individually, then you're going to create one as a group, and I'm going to ask you to sketch it so that you can post it, and then put some of those attributes next to it to share with our larger team. All right? And remember, post them backwards so we can reveal them. Timekeepers, we're going to reconvene about 2:20. All right, let's go. Before you guys are posted, and then we'll let a few finish up front. Okay, again, you're going to share your animal or place and what attributes led you to that decision.
Okay, our group chose the dolphin. Dolphins are intelligent, relational, fun. They live in pod schools. They're free-spirited and very adaptable, particularly with technology.
Okay. There you go, guys. Guys.
And this Picasso here was drawn by this young lady. We chose the cruise ship. It's customer oriented. It's anchored in solid foundation. It's engaging and entertaining. The scenery is ever changing. State-of-the-art technology. Everyone on the ship has opportunities and choices and options. And then there's money here, so of course that's necessary. And because we're the mayor's group and he had this idea, the brook trout is our fish, our animal. And the brook trout is colorful and flashy. He's a great fighter, he or she, and is native to certain streams. So that is our masterpiece.
Hi, everybody. We decided the Camille, and for us, it's a combination of a chameleon and an eagle. And the reasons for this is because we really were trying to think out of the box. I think we kind of got stuck thinking, okay, well, we had this or this, and we really don't want to do that. We really want to see what will it be like, what should it be like in the 21st century. So the chameleon, we picked the Camille because, one, education is always going to be changing. We have to adapt quickly. We have to be innovative. We have to survive in that environment. But then also the eagle part, because with eagles, they push their children to fly. They push them out of the nest, but they're there to catch them, bring them back, and help them learn how to fly until they're able to soar on their own. Their parents are with them. So we will have a mutant in the future called the Camille that will be able to survive quickly, fast, and learn, but always has someone there to catch them until they're able to go on their own.
Hi. We chose to do a garden, and it's kind of based on ancient gardens because water comes in, water goes out, goes on to the next field, so it's self-sustaining. It has plants that go from box to box, always breaking out of the box. It has fish or aquatic life so that we continue to grow and that we are having the garden that will sustain all of our people. not just those in a specific area.
Technical difficulties. We chose Disney World. It's intellectually stimulating, it's experiential, it's exhilarating. They have missions and core beliefs, customer service oriented, it's constantly being reinvented, and it's also the type of stimulation that we in education have to compete against.
Well, our rainbow group created a collage of Finland. Took this much more literally than many of you did, because it is the world leader in lots of ways, and we should look at the best in what it has to offer. We also looked at West Africa country of Ghana, in that even without technology, children were learning and were multilingual in some of our people's visits there. And we overlaid that with a starfish because it's adapting always to the environment that it's in.
We chose something that is really difficult to draw. Have you ever imagined drawing cyberspace? That's our choice. So the drawing, we hope, shows you that you could forever differentiate. It's unlimited, it's open, there are millions of possibilities, it's adaptable, it's global, everybody has access, and the minute you think you know what it is, it changes.
We chose the eagle. We believe we can fly. We chose the eagle because it's fearless, soars high, it was endangered, not endangered now. It's very adaptable. Good eyesight, sees the future. It's large, and its freedom represents democracy.
Our yellow group chose the ocean. It's adaptable, as we've heard, I think, in every single group. It's accessible anywhere, anytime, moves into areas. Fluid, responsive to the needs of the individual. It can serve a wide array of life, needs global support and care, and its connectedness.
Thank you. Now, I know a lot of you thought this was about the artwork, but actually, we wanted to do this activity because along with the beliefs, we wanted to start hearing the kinds of language that you're going to need for the next activity. And I appreciate the fact that some of these activities you're like, oh, it would have been nice to have a little bit more time. And I realize that because oftentimes you spend days with this and we only had 3 hours. So we are pressuring you a little bit. But we are going to spend the bulk of our time on the next activity. And that activity involves really looking at the design elements of when it really gets down to 21st century schools, what do they look like? So what we're going to ask you to do, and I'm going to have your little cheat sheet up here, is we're going to talk about discovering the possibilities. So each of you are going to get a set of 40 cards, all right? Now, they are going to have design elements for 21st century schools, 36 of them. There are actually going to be 4 that are blank because we're not going to presuppose that we know all of the elements. So it gives you some freedom if we've missed one to add it. But you're basically going to get $500 to spend on those design elements that you value the most. So again, it's not how much they're going to cost to do, it's which ones do you feel above all others are absolutely critical and you value them the most for 21st century schools. So every table should have a set of cards. In your toolbox, you're going to have some tape, and I'm going to thank my rainbow group up here for transitioning us as they built a collage, because you're all going to actually build a collage when you're done. You're going to take those elements that you select that for your group represent the key design elements of 21st century schools, and you're going to create a collage to share back with the larger team. Now, as a part of this, you should have $500. Go ahead and include the money with the elements that you pick. So this is going to be a good time to kind of clear your tables. We'll collect your belief statements. Don't throw those away. We'll have the team, if the team can go around and collect those. Also anything else, because you're going to probably need most of your table. A couple other things, and I have the cues up here. There's only a couple of things that you have to know. One is, remember, it's about value, the dollar amount you attribute to each element. And the second thing is you have to spend all your money. All right? So you must spend the full $500. If you don't see what you want, make sure you use one of your blank cards and create it. We're going to actually give you quite a bit of time for this. We're going to give you 30 minutes. All right? So you have got the next 30 minutes from 2:30 to 3 o'clock to go ahead and determine which design elements for 21st schools do you value the most. All right, timekeepers, let's set our watches. We'll reconvene at 3 o'clock. That's what I'm thinking. We're going to start in the middle. All right, is everybody ready to go?
Okay, in our group, we grouped everything other than one card into 4 large groupings. So we have school community relationships, and with that, the social services, partnerships, service learning, associate degree equivalent, parent involvement is there, and we put $100 to that grouping. Flexible learning options, we did things like our career, college, workforce readiness, time variables, non-traditional spaces, flexible scheduling, real-world applications here with 130. Innovation and technology is our next category with things like ebooks, global partnerships, virtual learning, distance learning, etc., and $130. And our highest amount was a category we called effort-based education. And we talk about teachers serving as facilitators, project-based learning, dual language programs, student-centered learning, peer tutoring, etc. And we have $140 on that category.
Great, thank you. Guys, we'll come back to you, okay? We'll come back. You guys want to chart?
Okay, we feel that the most important components of this are 2 things. We need more time to teach the kids. We're big believers in extended year, not to be confused with year round, but the extended year. Parental involvement we feel is also very, very key. And under the extended year, the flexible scheduling we think is an important key. We put $200 on that. Engaging in relevant instruction, under that, virtual learning, students learn in individual pairs, student-centered learning, teacher service facilitators, dual language, immersion, we put 100 on that. Project-based learning, real-world applications, we put 100 there. Community partnerships, social services, global partnerships, we put 100 there. The key, though, is getting to the outcomes of globally competitive graduates and college, career, and workforce readiness.
All right, who's ready?
Okay, we looked at it from what do we need for a solid foundation. So we really looked at what we thought, because you asked us what we valued the most and where we thought we could get our kids. And we looked at the health and wellness, parental involvement, and then getting the kids to school, and then having the ability to move the kids around. So all of those got $100 because for us they were really important. Our next layer was, once we got them to school, what did we value? And it was around that flexible time schedule, and also around ungraded group learning where kids could just move at their own space. And so each one of those we kind of valued equally, and so all of them get $60 together. Programmatic pieces that were important to us were the music, the arts, and I'm going to have to flip up in here, dual language, excuse me. I did such a good job, I taped my other one, and extracurricular, because we thought those are important, and each one of those get 20. And then I'm going to skip up to here because I think that we're a lot like what this table did, and definitely the outcome of global competitiveness. So we really put our eggs in the basket on preparing the kids, working with the community to prepare the kids to get there, and the outcome, and that got $80 for global competitiveness. Thank you.
Okay, we did ours kind of as a hierarchy, and we start with the health and wellness of all children being able to come to school, so we put our highest value on that, going with our needs, which are responsible for each other and to be created or valued equally. Social services, the parent involvement and community partnerships step in for each other and sometimes help and support each other, because we know that not everybody gets one of these in. So we added $30 value to each one of those. This line here is to treat the students as individuals so that we have a very flexible time variable. We do service learning, add activities, music, and the arts so that each child can be successful in the way that they need to be successful, because we know everybody does not learn the same. And this grouping here is again goes to the different types of learning. We assess $25 to each one of those different types of learning so that they have, again, that type of learning that's going to be good for them, something that they can learn from. Down here, we put the flexible schedules because we think that's another key element to be able to reach all the children and all the individuals. And we put down the non-traditional learning. We did space and location together because we really see those as two going together, so we created our own where there's non-traditional or two go together. And then down here we put that the college, career, workplace, and life readiness, we added life, is priceless. So we believe that if we do all of these things, we don't have to put a value on that down there because it's priceless, and that we're going to get to that if we're able to do all those things.
Thank you.
All right, we have a complicated group with a lot of ideas, so we're going to try to sum this up. We felt that teachers as facilitators, student-centered learning, parent involvement, and kind of coupled with the parent involvement, social services are where we place our big money. We didn't give it a specific value, but those are some of the big money items that we had to choose from. And then out of that, you get these outcomes. You get people with associate degrees and equivalent and dual credit programs, and kind of the workforce readiness and the non-traditional locations. All of that good stuff falls under there. Local autonomy, as you see, is in the middle. It stands alone. We felt that if you don't have the local autonomy, everything else that we're arranging on the board is for naught. So local autonomy is very key. And then under that also comes the health and wellness, and the music and arts, and the green schools, and the extracurricular activities. At the bottom, we have global partnerships, community partnerships, and transportation. Of course, kids have to get to schools. And over here, I can't see this one, real-world applications and being globally competitive. Those are coupled together. But everything starts from the top here, and these are the outcomes that will be produced if we do those things effectively. So.
Hello, everybody. Right here in the center, we have social services. It's kind of like our wheel. We invested $100 in that. It includes parent involvement, which of course is one of the greatest determinants of a child's success. So with that comes health and wellness. We're hoping to do community partnerships and including music and the arts with that, and also local autonomy is part of that. Our biggest investment is over here with $170, and it's rigorous content. It's a card we made, professional development for teachers, and global competitivity. Just believing that as we change the schools and make things different, we're going to need to be investing in the teachers and not just the structures. And up top here, we have $100 in student-centered learning with time as a variable underneath that. That one resonated a lot with us, just believing that teachers will need to be facilitators, and that's the future of where we need to go. And in the corner here, we have $90 invested in just equal access to the best schools. I believe that's it.
Hi, our group did it a little bit differently. We took each of these specific and then we tried to each incorporate our own definitions of what was involved in each of these groups. And the first two that we have that tied at $100 each were real world applications and parent involvement, because that's where it starts. The parents have to be involved, get the kids to school, help them, support them, etc. And they have to be able, whatever they learn, they have to be able to apply in the real world. Then tied, we have at $70 service learning, and that is so that the kids can learn, help, give back, and also understand the meaning of give and take, kind of does social skills as well in there. Again, it applies to after the school when they get out and live in the real world. Project-based learning, we did at 70. This was kind of the top umbrella to some of the other ones that we chose. And that's so that, again, they learned individually, collaboratively, and also get that real world on a project. So it's multifaceted, and so we did the project-based learning. And then it also involves some differentiating in there, too. Then at $40, next we have community partnerships. And that is essential for the community to be involved, have partnerships, access, that type of thing. Then tied next, we have 2, social services for supports, very important. And students learn individually, in pairs, and in groups. And then that goes back to the way children learn, the different ways that they learn, the manner, where they are academically, socially, that type of thing, different levels. Then next we have 2 of them, the extended day and the college career and work readiness. And the extended day is, this was a tough one. We really wanted this one to be up here, but money seemed to be a factor for us in being able to do that. And then we have $10 here for music and arts and the non-traditional spaces. We are hoping that keeping these in would be an inlet to attract more families and be able to maybe do some other things like that to grow the district as well.
All right, we got one group that's going to pull us together on this. Takers?
Oh, good. We're going to add it. Wow. I get the hard job of reporting this one out. So in our center was the outcome of college, career, and workforce readiness, and we put a significant amount of dollars there. I can't quite tell, but it was like over $300. And it was based on outcomes, and parental involvement was there too. And we circled that with health and wellness and social services receiving $40. Teaching styles adapted to students' needs and teachers have autonomy to make decisions received about $40. Students learn individually in pairs and groups, 20. Dual language immersion programs and being globally competitive received $40. Arts, music received 20. Transportation, 20. And the one thing that we talked about at the end here, we were passing things around, is that principal leadership matters. And that that was one thing that we needed to put on there that we forgot as we talked about it. So having a good leader at the building is essential. So.
We took a little different approach in that we didn't focus on outcomes. We had the plan that if we focused on what we thought was absolutely crucial, we would have the outcomes. And we put at the middle student-centered learning. And it encompasses ideas like service learning, project-based learning, and many of the other learning components that you saw on the cards. We felt we put $100 there, and we put an equal $100 on parent involvement, because real achievement happens and students move forward when the parents and the school are in line. So we thought that those two were really crucial. We went from there and felt that parents need choice within the district, and they need some open enrollment and choice. but they can't receive it unless they have transportation. We thought that was absolutely crucial if you're offering parents choice. And then what does it take to keep the children in school so that they will graduate? Meeting the whole child. So the arts are crucial, dual language acquisition, and extracurricular activities are what's going to keep the kids motivated and in school for all the things future. We thought the community partnerships went with local autonomy, and obviously technology was crucial. We also felt that we get at health and wellness if we have good offering of social services in the building, so that was crucial to meet the needs for kids and families as well. And we collapsed all the scheduling pieces into one thing, saying allow for flexible scheduling as needed. So given all these things, we should have great student outcomes.
Thank you. That piece in particular is quite useful because as we look at all of the communities across the state, it really helps to get a sense of where the values are. So now we're getting down to kind of winding down to the last, which is a really important element, is to now looking at your beliefs, looking at all the possibilities that you've looked at in terms of value for 21st century schools. We're going to actually ask you to take a look at what a mission statement might look like. Once we finish that, I'm going to ask Dr. Covington to come back up so you can have a chance. You've given us all of this great information that we can use to help create the direction of the EAA. And I know just from having circulated, a lot of you have questions about the EAA, so we're going to try to give a good 20-25 minutes for questions at the end. And then we're going to do one last thing. So what I'm going to have you do is spend about 10 minutes, I guess we've got about 12 because I want to get to about 3:30, working on the mission statement. And it's in a format where you're really going to be looking at two things. You're going to be looking at, if we want to look at what the mission of the EAA is, and what is that highest aspiration, and basically what's the purpose and how does it get there, you're going to basically be looking at two things. The mission of the Michigan Education Achievement System as a what? So what do you see it after hearing Dr. Covington speak today, after doing these exercises? What should this entity be? As a what is to do what? What would the highest aspiration in your mind be for the Education Authority? So we're going to ask you to take about 10 minutes as one single group and fill in those two statements. We're going to ask one of you who's your scribe, your reporter, to go ahead and post it, because as you leave today, what we're going to do is we'll do one final reading of those after Dr. Covington finishes speaking and answering your questions, and we're going to give you each 3 dots. And we're going to ask you to, as you listened and as you look, to go ahead and place those dots on those phrases or complete mission statements that really resonate with you as to what the EAA should look like for the state of Michigan. So we'll give you about 12 minutes. Well, now we're down to 10 because I talked, but 10 minutes to work on that. Then we'll bring Dr. Covington up, answer your questions, and then we'll read those 9 mission statements out and give you the dots. So as you exit today, you can kind of place that where the different components really resonate with you. All right? So take about, I've got the template up here. Everybody should have one of those at your table. Once you're finished, I'm going to go ahead and pass out the exit tickets or the evaluations as well, because we want to get a little feedback on the day. So if you do have a little downtime where you're waiting for Dr. Covington, you can also fill those out. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes.
All right, for wrap up, again, I'd like to thank all of you, seriously, for taking time out of what I'm sure busy schedules to come and share your insights, your opinions, and your ideas as to how we move forward and change the paradigm, creating 21st century schools. I understand that you all have burning questions, which is probably why you came in the first place, is to get the burning questions that you have answered. And so we're going to take a few minutes before Mary comes back up to do final wrap up, just to take questions. So the floor is open, and we'll entertain any questions that you have. And don't be bashful, I know you have them. Thank you, sir.
What kind of timing do you see for the creation of this concept?
In terms of timing, right now, our schedule is to start receiving schools in the fall of 2012. So when schools open up again this fall, after Labor Day, we will be acquiring schools. Right now, the schedule is that most of the schools, or if not all, that we will start out with will be from the Detroit area, with the understanding that in year 2, we begin to expand out in other areas where the persistently lowest performing schools are located. There is an opportunity, however, if schools, which is not our point for being here, and I don't want anybody to think that we've come to recruit your schools. That's not why we're here. We have come for the purpose for which you've been involved in today, and that was really to get your input. But if there are schools that say, well, we don't want to wait until 2013 to opt in, we want the kind of flexibility and the autonomy to do some things in our community that you're going to give to Detroit, then there's a way for you to make that request. Yes, ma'am?
I was wondering about your funding structure,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed that in some of the materials that you're going to be putting 95% of funding into the classrooms versus 55% that usually go. I was wondering how the authority was funded, is it separate, is it kind of a tier for people funding, and just kind of how that works.
Right. Right now, for startup, the EAA is being funded by a myriad of philanthropic groups across the state. In the fall of 2012, when we start, then we will be acquiring the per pupil allocation of students that will be enrolled in the schools that come under the auspices of the EAA. Now, as the chancellor of the authority, I have been directed to keep what we would normally call the central office. I have been directed to keep this space, or to keep this office, headquarters, whatever it is you want to call it, as lean as possible, with the understanding that most of the dollars that has been traditionally spent funding people in the district office, that those dollars will be channeled to the local school. Then it will also be my job to give these local schools the flexibility and the autonomy to do the job that needs to be done to bring about the kind of transformational changes that we need to have so that the kids can get the kind of education that they need. For example, if the local school says, well, Dr. Covington, we have partnered with the local health department to provide health services for our school. And as a result of that, the 2 nurses that or the 2 FTEs that we have for school nurses, we're not going to hire nurses because that function is going to be taken care of by the local health department via our partnership, and we're going to take the dollars for those 2 nurses and hire 2 more teachers. Well, that's totally left up to the local school. So this is about giving the schools the autonomy and the flexibility to do the kind of transformational things that we haven't had in the past. Well, it is a statewide system, but it's not a district. It is a system of schools, which is under the Education Achievement Authority, of which we have an 11-member board. Yes, ma'am?
Are you planning on blending that back in eventually when you get to that success rate? And then how are you going to continue with that lean top art department? Because I don't see that coming back in. I can see putting a lot of money into something and making it successful because of all of the resources you can allocate to that. But then at some point you have to segue back into and what's the transformation plan for that?
Are you saying after a certain period, will schools be allowed to go back to, I'm not,
their own district?
That's left up to the schools. The way the agreement, the interlocal agreement is currently structured, and the interlocal agreement is that agreement that gave birth to the Education Achievement Authority via a partnership between Eastern Michigan University, Detroit Public Schools, and the state. That kind of, and so in that agreement it says that after a school that comes into the EAS, after a certain period of time, they demonstrate, after a result of having had the autonomy and the flexibility, that they've made the gains that they need to make, then they can go back to their respective school district.
So then are your contracts, say like
Now, but Mike, I'm sorry?
The contracts that you establish, say like with this nursing community that you're talking about as an example, will that be long-term? Or is that just as long as you're there? Are you establishing something
That
that's
is,
going to be long-term across the board?
okay, well, once they, if the schools decide that they want to go back to X public school system from which they emanated, if X public school district haven't changed their structure, then when they go back under the auspices of the rules and regulations of that current system. They don't take that flexibility back with them.
Is that option there? Is that option there?
For them to stay or go back?
For them to take on the flexibility that you created?
Not to take back to their local district if that current governance structure hasn't changed, no. Which is it's one of the things that causes me angst in our structure, because my thing is, I think the school ought to have an option. If they want to go back, I think they should be allowed to go back, but if they say, because of the flexibility and the autonomy that we've gotten in this system, that's what has enabled us to get the kind of gains that we've gotten, and we don't want to go back, then I don't think they should be forced to. And by the same token, we have some schools that are not on the persistently low performing list that would also like to have this kind of flexibility and autonomy, but they can't come into the EAS because they're not on the list. And so if they say we want to have that autonomy, and if they say the only reason or the only way we can get it is that we have to become a persistently low performing school, why would we force a school to, if they're doing okay, is to downgrade student performance and just to get on the list, just to come into the authority to have that kind of autonomy. I think those schools should have some mechanism of asking or requesting for a waiver if they would like to say we want this same level of autonomy and flexibility so that we can take our student performance levels from where they are upwards, so to speak. Yes, sir?
What is the expected lifespan of EAS?
Right now, I think the EAS, based upon my understanding, has been created, and I don't expect that it's going to go away. It's being charged with taking the persistently lowest performing schools across the state and giving them the autonomy and flexibility that they need to make the kind of transformational changes that they need to make. So I don't perceive that this is a fly-by-night kind of initiative that will kind of cease at the end of the third or the fourth or the fifth year. Yes, sir.
Who makes the determination what school gets into the EAS? Is it the principal, the superintendent, the governor, or?
Well, the list. The list.
On the list,
right.
Automatically you're in.
Well, not at first, because there are schools that's on the list that's in outstate Michigan that won't be acquired in the fall, because right now our plan is to start in Detroit. But in year 2, once we develop a timeline as to how we will transition from Detroit to outstate Michigan to acquire those schools, at some point they will be automatically acquired by the Education Achievement Authority if they haven't made the progress that they need to make. They're still on the persistently low achieving schools list, and if they avoid of any plan by the state to make the kind of improvement that they have. Right now, if you are on the persistently low achieving list, but you've submitted a plan as required via the No Child Left Behind Act for school improvement, then if that plan has been approved, you could be on the list but still not be acquired by the EAA. Yes?
At one point, the state of Michigan gave a certain number of schools per year waivers to allow them more flexibility to meet their achievement points. Would the EAA ever consider partnering with the school district and granting schools within that district waivers to make those changes?
That hadn't been determined, but that's something that can certainly be considered. Yes. Yes, sir.
This may have been asked already, but it's very difficult to hear people on the other side of the room.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I'll repeat the question.
Okay, thank you. If your school is on the list for a few years, or whatever the case may be, somehow comes into this system, okay? Given that there's always going to be a bottom 5%, and lists will move and everything like this, if your building is no longer on that 5%, are you out of the system? how can you get out of the system? Or are you eternally locked into the system once you've gotten in?
The question is, if you are on the persistently low achieving list, and there's always going to be a bottom 5%, at what point can you leave the Education Achievement Authority and return to your local control, the local school district from which you emanated? And the answer to that is very simply, once you have been acquired, or once you come under the authority of the EAA, you'll be given a certain time period to make the gains that you need to make, whether that's 3 to 5 years, I'm not really sure how long that is. And then once you've demonstrated that you have made those gains, the school district then can be returned to the school district from which they came.
Okay, I guess maybe I didn't hear that correctly. My question was, when do you get out of the system? And what I thought I heard was you talking about what happens when you do get out, that you've got 3 to 5 years. Did I mishear that?
No.
Okay, so how?
What it,
Okay, how do you get out?
right.
So
The
you get in, you've got 3 to 5 years to
right.
prove something and get out.
Right. And your answer, your question is how?
Yes.
Right? All right. The EAS will have an uncompromising system of accountability. Right now, if you look across school districts, regardless of where they are and what state, normally the playing field isn't level. If you look at what charter schools are required to do versus traditional public, there's a huge difference there. And we, those of us who are in traditional public schools, we're continued to be bashed over the head because you're producing failing schools, you're producing failing schools, you're producing failing schools, when you can look at a lot of the charters, and they have been just as persistently low performing for years, and they're still allowed to operate in some cases. And so with the EAS, we level the playing field and hold all schools to the same system or to the same standards of accountability. And then once you make those marks, or once you make those gains that we've determined that you need to make, then you can be returned after that 3-year or 3 to 4 year period back to the school district from which you came, if that be your choice. Yes, ma'am.
You indicated, Dr. Pennington, that there's an 11-person board that's going to be the decision-making body for the EAA. And my question simply is, what kind of ethnic and language representation do you have, national origin representation? Is there on that board? I'm assuming the board members are governor appointed and that they're already in place. And so my concern for the schools, both the schools in Detroit, in the Detroit area, and in other places in Michigan, are how do parents, non-English speaking parents, interact with the authority? If it's a lean system and if there's an 11-person decision-making body that lives in cyberspace somewhere, how do you deal with the parent engagement component, especially if they're non-English speaking vulnerable population?
Yeah, well, right now, there is an 11-member board, and they come from various areas all across the state. They're not relegated to the Detroit area. It's truly a statewide body. It is a diverse group. Now, more specifically, to answer your question, we have had a number of parent meetings across the Detroit area, and the way that we pull these parents together to make sure that they and their concerns were being adequately represented was to partner with the Detroit Parent Network, which is a huge parent body under the leadership of Sharonda Buckman, thank you, who's done an excellent job. And at these parent meetings, I think we had up to maybe 500 parents. They all came from diverse backgrounds. And at these meetings, they made sure that there were bilingual interpreters in place, whether they were Arabic or Latino speaking or Hispanic speaking, so that we could adequately communicate with parents. Second point is, as we began to develop newsletters or correspondence that we'll be sending out to parents. We won't send those correspondence out without making sure that they are being sent in multi-languages for for the diverse group of parents that we serve. Yes, sir.
One last question, Dr. Covington. What about, will the discipline system be the same with the schools that you have as it relates to the public schools?
Okay, will the discipline system for EAA schools be the same as public schools? One of the things that you have to understand is that the EAA will not sit as a bureaucratic, top-up governance structure organization that wheels the big stick and says to the local schools, the local member schools, thou shalt. Our goal is to give you as much autonomy and flexibility as you can to do the job that you need to do to bring about the transformational changes so that kids can get the kind of education that they need to get at the local school. So historically, in the central office, there is what we call an Office of Student Support and Community Services, or an Office of Student Discipline, say, for example, where that office sets the discipline policies or the discipline guidelines for the district. We won't have any such office. That authority, again, is given back to the local schools so that they can determine for themselves how best they want to develop their curriculum and instructional programs, how best they want to provide their healthcare delivery systems for kids, how best they want to do discipline, whatever it is the local school needs to do. It is our goal to give them that flexibility to do it. So the answer to that is no. We're not attempting to replicate a Detroit public schools.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
But I wouldn't think so.
Right. Yes, sir.
For schools that are not used to doing all of those things and are used to having a central office, how are you going to build capacity in these buildings so that they will be successful taking on these new tasks?
Well, first of all, to get teachers, principals, and local school stakeholders accustomed to having this kind of authority and flexibility, and also helping them to make a transition in mindset, because really this is a different culture of operating schools. We're going to have to ensure that we're providing on an ongoing basis a comprehensive and professional development program by partnering with the local schools to expand leadership and teacher capacity. Schools are going to have to operate in different ways. Historically, the principal has been viewed as the head of the school. So we're going to have to also work with principals to get principals to understand that you're not the end all, you don't have all the answers, and there are a number of teachers in your schools who, if given the opportunity, could help you generate ideas or could help you implement plans and programs if you just give them the opportunity and allow them to come to the table of decision making. And so those are the innovative kinds of things that we're going to have to do. In addition to that, we will be partnering with such organizations as the New Teacher Project. We'll be partnering with Teach for America. We will be partnering with the local universities to also get them to change their paradigm in how they train and produce teachers. We have been accused, those of us in public education, of sending to universities and colleges at the inception of each year students that they have accepted that they have to remediate. I mean, this is what the universities and colleges claim. Now, I don't think those of us who work in public education, we don't deny that. We know that a good many of our students are not leaving our schools college ready, and that they do have to go through remediation. But at the same time, those of us on our side of the aisle, sir, we could make the same claim to universities that when your teacher candidates graduate in May and they are hired on to us, we have to put them through professional development programs because they don't even understand how to utilize data to make data-driven and data-informed decisions about their instructional practices in the classroom. And so there is really enough blame to go around as to the state of public schools in this country, and we can't, those of us who are in public schools, shouldn't be forced to assume responsibility for everything that has gone awry that caused our schools to get in the state that they're in, because the universities and colleges have to share some of the blame.
You mentioned going back to the district for things such as the discipline and those types of things. One of our big challenges here in Grand Rapids is charter schools and not supporting and giving special education, and that it's given back to the district. So it becomes a money issue and a staff issue and a strain on the district that we have, and I would argue a big reason why we're not successful in the district. So are you saying that those things, such as you're still going to outsource those back to the regular district, such as the discipline and the health and the special education, or are you going to be autonomous in that with your group?
We're going to give the schools the human and the financial resources to do those things.
So per pupil, just like the state would, a per pupil?
We're going to give those dollars to the school.
To the which school? I'm sorry.
To the EAA member schools.
So they are going to be autonomous and take care of their own units, and that's not going back to the districts?
Right now, in some cases, say for example, there might be serious cases of special education because of a child's exceptionality that school doesn't have the capacity to handle. Well, the school could then operate the same way a school district operates if it didn't have the capacity, and it could purchase that service from an agency or a service provider that provided that kind of service, because you would have the dollars to do it.
But you're talking about
The local school. Okay, Mary? All right, thank you. Oh, well, hold on a second. Let me answer one more question, because he's had his hand up for a while.
Just one question. What are your success stories? What makes you different than any other program that's come in? So what are your success stories out there? What city? What school? What state?
Okay, now are you asking me that as a chancellor in terms of, or are you asking me in terms of the EAA? The EAA. All right, the question is, what is the track record for success of the EAA, of the Education Achievement Authority? And the answer to that is we don't have a record or a track record of success, because the EAA was just developed in the latter part of the spring, early part of the summer, and we don't even have schools yet. However, if you look at educational research and look at those instances where local schools have been given the autonomy and flexibility to do the kinds of things and to have the kind of innovation that we're talking about giving to schools, those schools have in fact acquired and achieved huge levels of success, because they're not being directed by a bureaucratic top-down central office with a thou shall. They've been given the autonomy and the flexibility to be as innovative and as creative as they can be to serve the needs of the children in their school. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, we're going to wrap up. We've got just a few minutes, so I want to do this quite quickly. So if the reporters could quickly go up, we're going to quickly read through our mission statements. I'm going to ask you all to take the dots you've been given as you exit today, and as you listen to those mission statements, if there's a particular phrase or an entire mission statement that really resonates with you, I'm going to ask you to apply your dots. Before I do that, I want to talk about what comes next. We have one additional forum left, a conversation. Then we also are having a youth summit in which we will be pulling together high school students from across the state of Michigan, which will take place later this month. They will be going through the same types of exercises that you did today, as well as some other exercises, because we feel that that voice is one of the most important voices in where we're moving. So I do want to let you know that. We've gotten all of your information so we can share back the results. We also have a website, which I'm going to point to quite quickly, which is just www.michigan.gov, which is your standard state website, but you're just going to pop in the /EAS or /EAS, okay? So as we publish the materials from the conversations, you will be able to access those there. Again, it's michigan.gov /EAS. So go ahead, quickly, reporters, because I do want to respect everyone's time. If you guys could quickly, one last time, go to your posters. Let's read those missions, and we'll wrap up for the day. I do want to, on behalf of our team, thank all of you. We want to thank Grand Rapids for hosting us. And I know your time is valuable, and the fact that you were willing to give us 3 hours of it, we so appreciate. So quickly, reporters, we're going to give them a hand to help them, encourage them to go to their posters. Thank you, reporters.
The mission of the MEAA, we understand, is to be a vehicle for revolutionary change and to take the voice of the community, schools, parents, etc., and put it into action.
The mission of the MEAS as a supportive education facilitator for local school districts is to incorporate local assets and to encourage and offer technical assistance to build upon local success to enhance student academic achievement.
The mission of the Michigan Education Achievement System as an authority who oversees 21st century education is to reform education in the state of Michigan.
The mission of MEAS as a vehicle of transformation is to be the catalyst and vision setter for a Michigan educational system which leads to a prosperous state.
The mission of the Michigan Education Achievement Authority is to act as a driver to empower a transformative educational experience in which all students succeed in their 21st century schools. Thank you. Ours is the mission of the MEAS or MEA system as a resource is to provide the authority, resources, and flexibility for local entities to actualize plans for reform.
The mission of the MEAS as a student-centered organization that provides rigorous and relevant learning opportunities leading to self-directed, culturally competent, and globally competitive citizens.
The mission of the Michigan Education Achievement System as a governing authority is to provide access to the tools that help students achieve the skills needed to be successful in the 21st century.
And our mission, the mission of the EAS as a legislative appointed body, is to create an educational system that readies the children for success at colleges and careers in the global economy.
Okay, so that's 9 choices. You have 3 dots. So as you leave, I really want you to think about which of those phrases or missions as a whole resonate with you. Put your dots there. A couple housekeeping things. We do need our toolkits one last time. So if you could pop the markers, the pens, and the tapes back in. Also, just put your exit tickets in the center of the table and pop cans at the edge of the table because our high school has a recycling program and they would like to keep all of our cans today. Thank you again for coming. We so appreciate it. Use those dots wisely, and hopefully we will be talking with you again. Thank you.